Somewhere in southern France, around the year 1070, a teenage shepherd forgot his lunch. He was sitting at the entrance of a cave in the Combalou mountains, eating rye bread and a lump of raw ewe's milk cheese, when he spotted a young woman walking in the distance. He left everything behind, the bread, the cheese, the cave, and ran after her without a second thought. That forgotten meal sat inside that cave for several months. When the shepherd finally returned, his plain white cheese had been completely transformed, threaded with vivid blue-green veins of mold, sharp, pungent, and unlike anything anyone had ever intentionally created. His name was never recorded in any document, but the cheese was, and it went on to become one of the most celebrated and legally protected dairy products in all of human history. It is called Roquefort, and this is exactly how it happened. The cave where this accident happened is not just any cave. It is one of a network of natural caverns carved deep into a collapsed geological formation called the Combalou, located near the small village of Roquefort-sur-Soulzon in the Aveyron department of southern France. What makes these caves unique is a feature found in almost no other place on Earth: narrow natural fissures in the rock called florines that run from the cave floors up through the mountain itself, functioning as permanent natural ventilation shafts that move cold, humid air without interruption. The village did not choose the caves chose the village, and everything that grew around them followed entirely from that geological accident. These florines pull cold, humid air continuously through the entire cave network, maintaining a temperature of precisely 8 to 10 degrees Celsius year-round, with humidity levels between 95 and 99%, conditions so stable they vary almost nothing between summer and winter, or from one century to the next. That constant cold airflow creates the perfect biological environment for one highly specific mold to thrive and reproduce. A mold that would not be formally identified or named by science for another 800 years after the shepherd first encountered its effects in that cave. The shepherd who returned and found his transformed cheese had stumbled into a natural fermentation laboratory that nature had been quietly engineering for thousands of years before he arrived. The mold that transformed the shepherd's cheese has a scientific name: Penicillium roqueforti. It is a naturally occurring fungus that lives in the soil and the rock of the Combalou caves, and it is genetically distinct from any other mold used in cheesemaking anywhere else in the world. Its behavior inside a wheel of sheep's milk cheese is both biologically destructive and gastronomically extraordinary in equal measure. When used milk cheese is introduced into those caves, the Penicillium roqueforti spores begin colonizing the interior of the wheel. They break down fat molecules through a biological process called lipolysis, releasing short-chain fatty acids that generate the intensely sharp, peppery, and buttery flavor profile that Roquefort is famous for. The vivid blue-green veins visible inside every cut wheel of Roquefort are not a visual flourish. They are living networks of active fungal chemistry, and each vein carries a concentrated burst of flavor complexity that no manufactured additive or artificial process can replicate. Early cheesemakers discovered they could intensify and precisely direct the mold growth by piercing their cheese wheels with long metal needles after the aging process began. These needle channels allowed oxygen to penetrate deep into the interior of each wheel, feeding the Penicillium roqueforti and encouraging it to spread evenly through the paste rather than clustering unevenly near the outer surface. This technique, called needling, is still performed by every single one of the 7 authorized Roquefort producers operating today, in essentially the same manner it was first practiced 1,000 years ago. The shepherd, who abandoned his lunch in that cave, had no awareness of lipolysis or fungal biology. He simply left his cheese in the wrong place at exactly the right moment in history. Roquefort is not made from cow's milk or goat's milk. It is made exclusively from the raw, unpasteurized milk of one specific breed of sheep, the Lacaune, a hardy, ancient breed native to the Aveyron highlands of southern France, the same rugged terrain that surrounds the Combalou caves. This is not tradition for tradition's sake. It is biology, and the distinction matters enormously to how the final cheese develops its defining character. The Lacaune sheep grazes on wild herbs, native grasses, and the specific scrubland vegetation of the Aveyron region, and those plants directly shape the chemical composition of its milk in ways that no other breed on any other land can replicate. Lacaune milk is substantially richer in fat and protein than standard cow's milk, and those elevated fat levels are precisely what give Penicillium roqueforti the raw biological material it needs to produce Roquefort's signature flavor through lipolysis. Without Lacaune milk, the same mold in the same cave, following the same process, produces something fundamentally and measurably different. The relationship between that specific sheep and that specific cave is not interchangeable with any other combination of animal and location. Each Lacaune ewe produces only approximately 16 gallons of milk per season, a fraction of what a modern dairy cow generates in a single week. It takes 4.5 liters of this raw sheep's milk to produce just 1 kilogram of finished Roquefort, and for a standard wheel weighing between 2.5 and 3 kilograms, that means more than 13 liters of milk must go into every single wheel produced. A shepherd carrying field rations in 1070 would have packed exactly this kind of dense, compact ewe's milk curd, a high-calorie, slow-spoiling food designed to sustain a working man for several days in remote highland terrain. The milk, the mold, and the cave were three elements that had coexisted independently for centuries, brought together in permanent combination by one moment of distraction on a hillside afternoon. The legend of the shepherd and his forgotten lunch is set around the year 1070. But written references to cheeses from this specific region of southern France predate that origin story by nearly 1,000 years. In 79 AD, the Roman historian Pliny the Elder, in his encyclopedic work Naturalis Historia, wrote admiringly about the cheeses produced in the Lozère and Gévaudan regions, the same highland territory that directly surrounds the Combalou caves, and noted their extraordinary popularity among consumers in ancient Rome itself. Some food historians have argued that Pliny's description refers directly to an early ancestor of Roquefort, a blue-veined sheep's milk cheese from those same Combalou caves, already being actively traded across the Roman Empire nearly 2,000 years ago. Others dispute this interpretation, pointing out that Pliny's Latin text does not clearly identify a blue-veined product specifically, and that the description could apply to several regional sheep's milk cheeses of the period. That scholarly debate remains unresolved in food history literature to this day, and likely always will, given the limitations of the available historical record. What is not disputed is that by the High Middle Ages, Roquefort had become one of the most widely recognized and traded cheeses across the whole of Europe. It was served at royal courts, carried along trade routes, and praised by some of the most celebrated intellectual figures of the era. The French philosopher Denis Diderot, writing in his landmark encyclopedia, L'Encyclopédie in 1751, called it without hesitation the King of Cheeses, a title it still carries formally in France to this day. For a product that began as a piece of forgotten lunch rotting unattended in a dark cave, that represents one of the most remarkable upward journeys in the entire history of food. Before we reach the moment a French king made Roquefort legally untouchable, if this history is as fascinating to you as it deserves to be, take a second right now to hit the like button below. It helps more people discover this channel, and it costs you nothing. And if you want the full deep dive on every legendary cheese origin we cover, hit subscribe so you never miss what is coming next. By the early 1400s, the people of Roquefort-sur-Soulzon had been producing their cheese in the Combalou caves for generations, building an increasingly sophisticated system of aging, production, and regional trade. But they faced a growing and economically damaging problem. Cheesemakers in other parts of France had begun producing similar blue-veined cheeses and selling them under the Roquefort name, flooding markets with inferior imitations and steadily eroding both the price and the hard-earned reputation of the genuine product. The villagers formally appealed to King Charles VI of France for protection. On June 4, 1411, Charles VI issued a royal charter granting the people of Roquefort-sur-Soulzon an exclusive legal monopoly on the ripening and production of Roquefort cheese within France. It stands today as one of the earliest documented examples of geographic food product protection in all of recorded European history, and the king attached genuine legal penalties for any party that violated its terms. The charter itself stated explicitly that the village had been producing this cheese for centuries before the document was drafted, confirming beyond legal dispute that Roquefort was already an ancient and established tradition long before any formal protection existed. No cheese produced anywhere outside these specific limestone caves could legally carry the Roquefort name, and violators faced punishments enforced by royal authority. A shepherd's discarded lunch had become a state-protected national economic asset, predating the entire modern framework of intellectual property and geographic indication law by more than 500 years. Charles VI's charter did not simply protect a food product. It protected a method, a geography, and a generational culture that had grown entirely from a single afternoon of human distraction. 5 centuries after Charles VI's royal charter, Roquefort made legal history again, this time with the full institutional weight of the modern French government standing behind it. In 1925, France established its Appellation d'origine contrôlée system, a formal legal framework designed to protect the geographic and cultural origins of its most important agricultural and food products from imitation and dilution. Roquefort was the very first food product in French history to receive this designation. Not wine, not cognac, not bread, but a blue-veined cheese aging in limestone caves in the Aveyron Highlands. The AOC regulations governing Roquefort were precise, comprehensive, and non-negotiable from the moment of their adoption. The cheese could only be produced using raw, unpasteurized Lacaune sheep's milk, sourced from a strictly defined and mapped geographic zone within the Aveyron region of southern France. It could only be aged inside the natural Combalou cave network of Roquefort-sur-Soulzon. No other location, regardless of its geological similarity, qualified. Any product produced outside those 2 specifications, regardless of its milk source, its mold culture, or its production method, was legally barred from using the name Roquefort anywhere within France. In 1961, a landmark ruling by the Tribunal de Grande Instance at Millau reinforced the geographic protection even further when the court ruled definitively that a cheesemaker using the identical Penicillium roqueforti mold culture, the identical Lacaune sheep's milk, and the identical production methods as the Combalou producers still could not legally call their product Roquefort if it was not aged inside those specific caves. The name belonged permanently to the place, not to the recipe, not to the mold, not to the method. In 1996, the European Union extended that same protection across all member states under the Protected Designation of Origin framework, making Roquefort one of the most comprehensively defended food products in the world. Today, exactly 7 producers on Earth hold legal authorization to make it, and every single one ages their cheese in the same cave network of the Combalou, where a teenage shepherd abandoned his lunch almost 1,000 years ago. Roquefort is not a museum exhibit or a historical footnote. It is one of France's most actively produced and internationally exported cheeses, with a modern commercial footprint that would have been unimaginable to the shepherd who started the whole story. Based on recent production figures, more than 3 million wheels are produced annually across the 7 authorized producers, approximately 18,800 metric tons per year, making it France's second most consumed cheese overall and one of the most recognized blue cheeses sold anywhere in the world. Every single one of those 3 million wheels must pass through the same Combalou caves in Roquefort-sur-Soulzon. Every one must be produced from Lacaune sheep's milk sourced within the designated geographic zone. Every one must be colonized by Penicillium roqueforti, the same strain of cave-borne fungus that colonized a forgotten piece of ewe's milk cheese in 1070 AD. The modern production process incorporates laboratory-controlled mold cultures, precision digital temperature and humidity monitoring, and mechanized needling equipment that the original shepherd could never have imagined. But the fundamental biological transformation at the heart of every wheel has not changed by a single step in 1,000 years of continuous production. What makes Roquefort's story genuinely remarkable is not the accident of 1070 itself. It is the unbroken chain of deliberate human choices that followed it across 10 centuries. Villagers who tasted something strange and unexpected and chose to understand and recreate it rather than discard it. A king who concluded that a shepherd's abandoned lunch in a limestone cave deserved the protection of royal law. A modern government that selected cheese, not wine, not grain, not any of France's more famous agricultural products, as the first food in the nation's history worthy of full geographic legal designation. A series of courts that enforced that designation aggressively against every imitation and legal challenge across decades. Every wheel of Roquefort sold anywhere in the world today represents a direct, unbroken historical line back to one teenage shepherd who forgot his lunch in a cave and ran across a hillside toward a girl he almost certainly never found. Let us bring the complete story together in one place. Around the year 1070, a young shepherd in the Aveyron region of southern France sat at the entrance of a cave in the Combalou mountains, eating a midday field ration of rye bread and raw ewe's milk cheese. He spotted a young woman walking in the distance, abandoned everything where it sat, and did not return to that cave for several months. Inside, in the cold, humid air circulating continuously through narrow rock fissures called fluorines, a naturally occurring fungus called Penicillium roqueforti, unique to those specific limestone walls, had colonized and entirely transformed his plain white cheese into something no one had ever deliberately created. That biological accident was officially recognized and legally codified by King Charles VI of France on June 4, 1411, through a royal charter that stands among the earliest geographic food protection documents in European history. It was protected by the full force of French national law in 1925, as that country's first ever appellation d'origine contrôlée product, before wine, before cognac, before any other food or agricultural product in the nation. A landmark court ruling in 1961 confirmed that the protection extended to the process and the geography inseparably, and the European Union formalized that protection continent-wide in 1996. Today, 7 producers hold the sole legal right to make Roquefort, all operating inside the same cave network with the same mold, using the same Lacaune sheep's milk, the direct, unbroken result of one forgotten lunch and 1,000 years of consequence. If you found this origin story as extraordinary as it deserves to be recognized, please hit the like button right now. It costs nothing, and it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who care about the hidden history behind what we eat every day. Subscribe so you are here for every origin story we publish going forward. And drop a comment below telling us which cheese origin you want us to investigate next. We read every single one, and your suggestions directly shape what this channel covers.